No?
There we go.
Okay, how's that? Okay. Again, thanks for showing up tonight, and thank you for your patience. Okay, my glasses. Ah, there we go. Excellent. Okay. So I look and I see we have quorum, so this meeting is in fact going to continue. Councillors, if you have looked at the agenda, and do you have any additions or subtractions of the agenda thereof? Then we will vote on accepting the agenda as is. All those in favor? Okay, any pecuniary interest by any councillors on the agenda items? Okay, no pecuniary interest. So the first, number 4, the fourth item on the agenda then is the budget 2019 budget presentation by our treasurer, Teresa Quinlan. Madam Director?
The door's supposed to stay open.
I'm sorry?
They're
Oh.
trying to shut the door. It's
Oh, I
just-
see.
It should probably stay open.
Should
I know
stay
she
open.
I know she can't see behind there,
Yeah,
but
oh, I see, yes.
it's open meeting, right? So
Yes,
people need to come
exactly.
and go.
Yes, yes. Hey, Mr. Sparks, Bob, that door actually has to stay open because it's an open meeting. Sorry to, okay. Thank you.
I had it set up this afternoon, so.
It's not this?
No, it's on. Let me just.
Just want to go down? Must be down for the presentation.
Not sure why it's not.
Oops. Oops.
Why it's not projecting. No, we had it running this afternoon, so I don't understand.
There you go.
Okay.
Madam Treasurer, the floor is
Yeah.
yours.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome council and everyone that's here. Tonight is the budget open house. You can't read that, but that is the schedule that's in your package here. And that's also posted on the website. So this is the actual budget timeline for 2019. And what that shows is that tonight, on January the 7th, is the opportunity for the residents to come to council and talk about some of the budget requests they would like the council to consider. The town of Pelham budgets. The town's budget is a financial plan that outlines the money the town will raise and spend within the year. It aligns to the strategic priorities of the services that are delivered daily to the residents, and it directs what infrastructure will be purchased, constructed, and repaired. So there's 3 types of budgets that the town has. One is the operating levy budget, and this pays for the daily business of the town, which includes the library. And this is for all the programs and services, including the staff to deliver these services, supplies, and repayment of debt. So that's the operating budget. And this amount is the budget that's paid by your property taxes. We have an operating rate budget, and this pays for base services such as water and wastewater treatment. And the costs for these services are charged to the residents based on usage only, not by property taxes. So it's a separate budget. That's the water wastewater budget. And then we have a capital budget, and this is used for long-term investments like infrastructure and facilities, which are paid off over time. And this includes major capital projects such as road repairs, machinery, are examples, and facilities. Development charges also contribute to the funding of our growth related to capital projects. So those are the three budgets that will be coming to council in the next couple of months. One of the questions that people ask all the time is, where do my property taxes go? And so based on the 2018 budget, an average home assessed in Pelham is about $338,000, and that equals to $4,321 of annual property taxes. So of that amount, so the town is responsible to collect taxes on behalf of the town services, on behalf of the region, and also on behalf of the Ministry of Education. So if you look at the breakdown, you can see what portion pertains to the three categories. This is probably a better diagram. It shows that of your property taxes, 48% of your taxes are actually they actually go to pay for services provided by the region, 39% are services provided by the town, and 13% will go to education. So when you pay your property bill, this is where the money goes. And so a further breakdown is this shows you what services are actually provided from your property taxes. So the blue on there is the region, the green are the services provided by the town, and the red is the education. So if you look at the region and you say, of the total portion that the region that you pay your taxes, just a little bit over $2,000, 41% of that money goes to police services. And so that's the services that's provided for the police department on behalf of the whole region, and that's the town of Pelham's portion that we pay for police services. The next biggest item for the region is regional roads. So anything to do with regional roads is about 16% of the taxes paid to the region covers the roads, the regional roads, for example, Highway 20. If we look at the green section, which is the town, 42% of your taxes towards the town's portion pertains to public works, which is roads, sidewalks, and winter control. So that's the highest expense the town has. And the next section, like for example, parks and recreation is 14%, fire services is 13%. So that's a good breakdown to say, when I pay property taxes, what are the services that I am receiving? So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm finished with my presentation.
Thank you for your presentation, Madam. Councilors have any questions for the director?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The 338,645, that seems to be a little low as an average assessment of homes.
This is the average home. This comes from the impact, and it's the average. So when we look at the homes, we take out the outliers, like the homes that are really, really expensive and over $1 million, and the ones that are really low. So this is the average of those homes.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, is that condos or rental property?
It's all property.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone who pays property taxes.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for that report. I thought it was, broke it down pretty nice and answered any questions I had. Thank you. So a motion by Councilor Wink that Committee of the Whole receive for information the 2019 budget materials presented by Teresa Quinlan, the treasurer. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay. So next on the agenda, we have a presentation from the about the Air Classic race, ARC. Sir, you have the floor. Oh, and Madame, sorry. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Peter Van Kolart, and to my right is Kathy Boyko. We're the co-chairs for the 2019 Air Race Classic Terminus, which is going to be held at the Niagara Central Dorothy Rundgling Airport on the 19th, well, through the 19th to the 24th of June this year. The Air Race Classic is a 43-year-long old event, annual event, that has been run to promote women in aviation, their flying contribution to the aviation world, and to deeper promote fellowship and the educational and career choice opportunities available to women that aren't considered as part of the normal career paths that are available to women. This particular air race would appeal to people who are in the science, technology, environmental, and math fields, looking to broaden their careers into something that is somewhat non-traditional and, to most people, a surprise. One of those surprises is that our community, when I talk to people in the community, don't know that we have an airport and that the municipality has an asset, a 1/4 share asset, that is an aviation asset, and we've had this asset for almost 60 years. This asset happens to reside in Pelham, but it's shared jointly by the 4 South Niagara communities of Wainfleet, Port Colborne, and Welland, along with the town of Pelham. This is a fantastic place. In 2014, there was a report done by Archibald and Leclerc, I think is their name. They did an economic advisory report about the value of the airport to the community. Basically, over the 4 years from 2014 to 2018, the economic impact is about $14 million to the community. What we're here to talk to you about is the Air Race Classic. And the thing about the Air Race Classic that brings with this community, and in fact South Niagara, is that Dorothy Rundgling, a longtime resident of this community, was an air racer. And as an air racer, she used that platform to propel women into aviation at a time when women in aviation weren't much considered. And more so at a time when she was bringing to the fore the value of Niagara, South Niagara, and Canada. She did this through her international air racing career. And this race that's coming here is the first time the race is coming to this part of the world. It's the first time in Canada since about 1995. And that part is particularly important. At no time has the air race been in this community other than as a starting point back in the 50s when Dorothy was able to organize the air race to leave from this place, but has never returned back here. The air race briefly is roughly 50 race teams comprised of 2 or 3 aviators per aircraft. It is a 2,400-mile race. It is conducted around North America, and it, for the first time, will have 4 stops in Canada, and the last stop is here. This event brings to town about a $650,000 economic impact. And when I say to town, I really mean to the 4 surrounding communities, because they share in the economic impact. I've broken that out in the presentation that I've provided to the members of council here. And I'm going to draw your attention to just the one big point, and that is in the middle of the second page. This represents a 66.7 times multiplier for the reason we're here. And the reason is an ask. And we're looking for a 10-cent per capita expense to invest in the air race to help us cover our $40,000 budget. Pelham's portion in that would roughly round out to about $2,000. And we don't think that's a terrible ask, but we also have two other asks. And the second ask is that you consider taking out a quarter-page ad in this wonderful glossy that is produced for the air race. And as you look through it, you'll see that this is not a second-rate publication. This is really top drawer. And it befits the nature of the race and the status of this. And the last ask that we have is that you consider proclaiming the week of the 19th to the 24th of June as Air Race Week in this community. And that's the same ask that Kathy and I are both going to make to the other three communities around South Niagara. So tonight we're in Pelham, tomorrow we're in Wainfleet,
And Welland,
and
we're splitting.
Welland, yeah. And we'll be in Port Colborne in a week or so. So that's all I have for you. I think at this point we'll be open to questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Any councilors have questions, either the presentation, the ask, or the race itself?
Through you, Peter, or I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Peter, have you gone around the community, a business community in our local?
We have not yet done the full thing because this is last year's catalog. This year's catalog's coming out. We're currently in that campaign.
Anyone else? I have a few, if I may. This race obviously was in effect when Dorothy was doing her flying. Did she ever win this race?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes?
Yeah.
Excellent.
But it's in its previous version, not as the Air Race Classic.
Okay.
The Air Race Classic's only been around for 43 years.
Oh.
She won previous iterations of this, and Kathy can better speak to this than
Yeah,
I.
and this race goes back to the All-Women's Air Derby of 1929, which was called the Powder Puff Derby. You've probably heard of that one. And as a result of that, Amelia Earhart started getting things going for women in aviation. She placed second in that race. So Dorothy Rundling did race during the 50s, and I have to go back and do my homework and see how high she placed and how frequently. She had one year she raced 9,000 miles in a very small single-engine aircraft, so she was quite a woman.
And I believe the races she ran or went in at that time, they were also international. Like
Went to Havana.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes. I just finished reading a book on her, and you're right. A few of them ended up in Havana. Yes, pretty impressive. So is there many problems to overcome when you're doing an international race like this as opposed to keeping the race within the Canadian borders?
We thought that the biggest problem would be dealing with getting the aircraft across the border. Since 9/11, this has never come back across the border. And as a result, in contacting the people who organized the air race, they said, no, we have a way around this. We're going to have everybody cross the border at another location that's up towards Sault Ste. Marie, and they can deal with the border problems over there as opposing to dealing with them here. So they will cross the border mid-race, so to speak, and they'll be in Canada for the remaining part.
Okay.
So it'll be no problem coming back down
And
this
then
way.
the border concerns won't be a timing issue for them either, and that's, I know, not the question, but they're going to be timed out at Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, do customs however long it takes them in our Sault Ste. Marie, then overfly Michigan to start the clock again, and then off
Okay.
to go.
So they would have to land at the Sioux then to be checked out. Is that how that would work?
Ontario, yes,
Yes.
Canadian
Yes.
customs.
Yeah,
So that's
okay.
where they have to do Canadian customs.
Excellent.
Per the race.
And I'm sorry. How many racers are you expected in
Expecting
the?
about 110 racers, about 55 aircraft.
Wow.
And there will be additional aircraft that accompany them. We see other members of the family come and stay in the community as well. So there'll be parents and boyfriends and husbands.
And the collegiate teams have the equivalent to the NASCAR trailers that go behind the cars in order to bring supplies and parts.
Yeah.
So they have other aircraft that are support aircraft that'll fly tailing along in the race.
Excellent. And, excuse me, I believe at the first part of the race, or at the first beginning of the race, they have a big meal. At least that was when Dorothy was flying. If they do that at the beginning, will you be doing anything special at the end of the race?
We have 3 days worth of events planned here. Sorry, Peter.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
We have a meltdown party at the airport, so there will be catering there and local foods and so on brought in for that. And there's a breakfast as well, mandatory briefings, and then also an awards banquet. So
Wow.
that goes through from Friday till Sunday.
So in order to spread the joy around in the 4 communities, because we know that this is the important question, the meltdown party's at the airport, and a local caterer is going to take care of that for us. The Air Race Committee executive already held a meeting in Welland just the weekend after Thanksgiving. And they were here to see the venues, check out the hotels, and the airport itself for its, facilities.
Yes.
And they ended up going to restaurants in Port Colborne, restaurants in Pelham, and the gala is going to be planned for Lookout. It's already booked and planned for Lookout, so it'll be bringing that here. And in the interim, there's also coupons in their goodie bag to direct them to the local businesses to eat here, and whoever offers the best deal. So.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and so weather, how does that affect us?
Don't even mention that.
No, because
As you see, I
thunderstorms.
went-
June is the longest day of the year, so we're hoping.
Yes.
I went last year. They had significant weather challenges last year. They worked around them.
Okay.
These girls are dedicated. They will come to the terminus even if they have to hop on an airline to get here. And they did that last year.
Wow,
It was
excellent.
terrible last year.
Excellent.
So we should be golden this year.
And the only good thing is, of course, a thunderstorm, the pilots can usually go around them and circumvent them, something like that.
Oh, yeah, and in this case, it may be 200 miles
Yeah.
going
Wow.
around
Wow.
and,
Wow.
and coming back. So it's not uncommon, and that's part of the skill of the race.
That's part of
Being
the
able
planning.
to read the weather, read the winds, find the altitude that'll give you the best speeds, so you can win.
Yes, excellent.
But
Very
they all
good.
need to come here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Again, any questions from any counselors? Again, thank you for your presentation. We will take your request under consideration.
I have one
and,
question for you.
Yes,
How about the proclamation?
pardon me?
It's a proclamation.
Proclamation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Would you
yeah.
please consider it?
Yeah, no, consider it done. Yes,
thank you.
indeed. Yes, yes, you will, for sure. Excellent.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
for your
Have a
time.
great race. So we have here a motion again by Councillor Wink that Committee of the Whole receive and refer to staff the presentation and correspondence from Mr. Peter Van Kellett, co-chair of the ARC Terminus Committee, to be included in the 2019 budget request for consideration by council, and that committee recommend that council bring forward for consideration that the corporation of the town of Pelham proclaim June 19th to 24th, 2019 as an air race week. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
See you at the race.
You will. Thank you. Okay. Item 5.2, Pelham Public Library Board making a presentation, I believe.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Junkin, councilors, thank you for allowing us to present the Pelham Public Libraries Board 2019 budget request. My name is Tim Wright, and I have been the Library Board Chair for the past 3 years, and will be for about the next week, awaiting appointments for the next board. Before we get into the details of the budget, or the dollar details of the budget, we'd like to give a little bit of information, a little bit of history to help understand the numbers. First of all, I'll let you know what the mission of the library is, which is to engage, encourage, and enrich our community. As an organization, we believe an informed and educated community is a stronger and better community. And as we do our work as a board and as the library does their work as staff, those are sentiments that we hold very close in our consciousness as we do our work. So looking at how the library is used in the past year, 1 in every 4 residents in the community use their library card at least once. 1 in every 8 residents use their library card on a weekly or monthly basis. 10,000 hours of public computer usage. There was over 6,000 participants in programs that we offer within the library. There was over 100,000 entries and exits into the 2 libraries in Pelham, and almost 200,000 items were borrowed. These numbers to us point out that the library is a very important asset to the residents of the community. Certainly the feedback we get from residents is positive about the library and its usage and the programs that we offer, and we think these numbers point that out. In terms of the first 2 points there about the usage of the library cards, they are probably understated in terms of the proportion of residents who use the library, because those that use the computers and those that use the programs don't get counted in those library card statistics. So we believe this shows a very high proportion of residents in the community use their library. Second thing I'd like to point out about this listing is that I think it points out that libraries are no longer just about books. Libraries are about information and education. And those are things that we take into account as we develop our programs, develop our services and resources. And I'd just like to point out that the vast majority of services that are available through the library are provided free of charge. And that is required in the Public Libraries Act, that most of the services we offer be done so without charge, which becomes an issue when we start talking about revenues a little later on. Over the last 4 years, and we use the 4 years as the mandate of the current board, we've undertaken a number of innovative steps throughout those 4 years, and I won't go into detail on all of these programs. If you have specific questions, I'd turn that over to Amy Guillemette, who should have introduced when I started. Amy is the acting executive director, or acting CEO of the library at the moment, and she can answer any of those detailed types of questions. I would like to highlight a couple of things. One of our key innovations in the last several months got left off the list, and that is the partnership with the local Rotary Club for our information house in the new community center, which by looking at the amount of usage that it gets has been a very successful partnership. But I would like to highlight the partnerships that we do get into as a library. Things are becoming so complex in the information world. It's hard to do things on your own. And I'd point out the link collection sharing. And can't remember what the acronym stands for, but basically it's a partnership of ourselves and 4 other libraries in the region to share collections. And it's been extremely widely used. Enhancing that link program, the public libraries in Niagara Falls and Welland have both started sharing programs themselves. So they haven't joined the program officially, but really it's a 7 library sharing arrangement. And to date, or in the past year, there were 8,000 borrows by residents of Pelham in the link program. So it's being greatly used by Pelham residents to get additional resources that might not be available within Pelham. Also, over the last 4 years, there's been tremendous changes in our our facilities. Everyone knows about the Maple Acre rebuild and expansion and new furnishings for the Maple Acre site. We have a new art display system at Font Hill. We have new furnishings and a new circulation desk at Font Hill. And a feasibility study has been completed for renovations within Font Hill, which I'll go into more detail in a few minutes. Like to highlight for the Maple Acre build and opening, it's been a tremendous success, as we have reported to the previous council in terms of utilization within the library, within the community of Fenwick, and has been a great enhancement to the services offered to our community and the community in the western part of Pelham. I'd like to speak now about the challenges that we will be facing for the coming year and beyond that. One of our challenges has always been sustainability of revenue sources. We need to balance rising expenditures, and both of those items I will go into in a reasonable amount of detail in a few minutes. There's a growing need to update the Font Hill branch, and again, I'll spend time on that. And as I mentioned, the library business has changed dramatically over the past decades, and there's an evolving needs being asked for by the residents of our community of its library, and there's a need to receive, consider, and address those types of needs when appropriate. And there's a real importance to maintaining our outstanding customer service. One of the real strengths of the library is the staff that we have at the library. We have a staff that has been there for several years in most instances, a lot of stability in the staffing. And if there's one compliment we get on an ongoing basis, it's the quality of the service received by residents of the community, by the staff at the library. So we see that as being an important asset for the community and for the library, and our budgeting and our operations take that into account. And one additional thing I'd like to say about the challenges and the past years is that over the past 4 years that the library has operated, all of the challenges that we've had and what we anticipate in the future has always been done on a balanced budget. In the time that I've been involved with the library board, I can't speak for before that, but we have always balanced our expenditures with our revenues each and every year, and ended up with either a very small surplus or a very small deficit. And we have reserves on our accounts, and we have donations in the bank. So we are in a stable financial position. I wouldn't say that we're in a strong or lucrative financial position, but we are certainly in a stable financial position as we go into the next year. Things that I'll highlight over the next couple of minutes is the building maintenance and repairs increase that we're requesting of $24,000, which is very unusual. I'll explain the reasons for that. I'll highlight salaries and benefits, the increase there, mostly because that's our largest expenditure, and make comment that all the other expenditure lines, other than those first two categories, we're talking about a $5,000 increase, and we're talking many multiple accounts. Asking for increases of only $5,000, and we have had some decreases, one notable one being utilities, and the total increase in expenditures that we will have is $39,000 in the coming year. First of all, salaries. This graph, as you can see, does not have a very steep curve to it at all over the years. Your copy doesn't have, but my copy does have some percentages, and in each of the years over, it does have, sorry, thank you, Amy. The level of expenditure for salaries and benefits over the last several years really has just been for inflationary increases and step increases for staff as they start in their career at the library. A notable exception to the salaries line is in 2017, where there's a 5% increase, and the magnitude of that is caused almost totally by the increase in hours of operation at the Maple Acre branch of 14 hours per week. That was a very strong sentiment being expressed by the community as the rebuild was being discussed, as the rebuild was being planned, and as the rebuild was put into place. And we carried through on the sentiments that we were hearing from the community and from the previous council, and have added additional resources at Maple Acre, and the community down there has been tremendous in their receipt of the services that are now being offered there, and have carried through on their end of the bargain of utilizing a prime resource that is now available in that community. The 4.3% increase in benefits was mostly an accounting type of situation in that we are on the benefit program of the town, and we have interplay with them, and some expenditures got lost in the shuffle over a number of years, and the 4.3% was a catch-up to make sure that the numbers that the town was projecting and the numbers that we were incurring matched each other. There was no increase in benefits for any staff that contributed to that 4.3% increase. There was no addition of staff that would have added to the benefit costs. So that was just a rectifying of some past practices. And as you can see, for 2019, we are projecting only a 1.3% increase for the coming year, and that's totally due to inflationary increases and a couple of employees who are still due step increases. Now, speaking about the contract services, building and maintenance, over the past decade, we were using a low-cost cleaning service for the decade. The contractor who is providing it is retiring. We had gone to market at least once during that decade and checked pricing, and he continued to be much below anything else we were receiving in terms of contracts, but now he is going on to better things for himself. We went to market, we approached 4 companies, and we only received one bid from those 4 asks, and the bid we received is much higher than what the previous contractor was providing, which in some ways is good because the service that we were getting lacked in some ways, but we couldn't afford to change the service. To a degree, we're getting forced into that at this point in time. And one of those services that has been lacking has been a ongoing carpet and window cleaning program for the 2 buildings. And certainly in terms of Maple Acre, you can appreciate with its design, the window cleaning is an important aspect of that building, given its design. So, Amy, the previous cost of that earlier contract was what?
Of the janitor?
Yes.
Contract, it was $18,000 less per year.
So 18,000 less than what our quote is that we got, so therefore a sizable increase.
And we looked at it a few years ago, and it was way below everybody then, and we couldn't afford to switch. But now we're being forced to switch.
So that's the story of the building and maintenance costs. Materials cost, there's not a big increase here, but just to point out the dilemma that we get into with rising costs and having to be careful with revenues. In 2013, we purchased 2,800 books for $42,000. 5 years later, in 2018, we purchased 600 less books for $4,000 more. So you can see how those lines start causing problems in terms of the availability of resources and what that cost is. The cost increase for this year will be relatively nominal, but we do worry about the availability of resources that we have for our community, which again emphasizes the importance of a program like the LINK program, that residents still are able to get selection from a wide range of possibilities. So going on to the dollar amounts, expenditures, as I noted earlier, salaries and benefits constitute about 80% of our expenditures. So any changes in salaries and benefits has a tremendous impact. The change this year is relatively minimal at 1.3% for inflationary increases and so on. But you can see where our center of attention has to be on our budget, and we are being very diligent with our staffing and so on, being very conservative in how we approach that. Materials and processing, I just explained that. We have a $2,000 increase asked for this year, which probably won't buy us as many books as last year, but we don't know that till we go through it. But the building and maintenance is showing up there in terms of the impact it has on the total overall ask. And then you take the last 5 lines in terms of other budgeting lines, and the total on the left and the total on the right are almost identical between 2018 and 2019. So as I said, the changes in our budget really is the inflationary increases in salaries and benefits and the cleaning issue for the library. In terms of our revenues, I talked about the need for balancing the revenue issue. And certainly it's obvious where the major origin of our revenue is. And we're grateful to the municipality each and every year for what you are able to contribute to the library. And we make this presentation every year on that basis. You can see the other opportunities are very restricted as to what we can do. The provincial operating grant has been the same for many, many years. There was extra money put in the provincial budget by the previous government to increase funding for libraries. Now, it wouldn't have brought it up at the municipal level by any stretch of the imagination, but it could have been significant for us in this budget year. But certainly the talk around the town and in the library field is that, well, the province hasn't made any announcements about next year's funding. And certainly the anticipation is that extra funding that was going to be provided to libraries won't be coming through in the coming year. So we are not putting it in our budget. We're not counting on it at all. Federal grants are non-existent almost. Fines, fees, rentals, again, another static line. The day of library fines has, I'm not sure whether it's disappeared completely, but certainly it's not the item of talk that it would have been several decades ago when people were amassing huge late fines and stuff like that. It's not something. In fact, most of that those dollars are probably from our room rentals, the festival room in Font Hill, and the meeting rooms in Maple Acre. Fundraising, we have $22,000. It's staying the same this year because it has flatlined a bit, but over the last 4 years, our fundraising revenues have gone up 45%. So we have worked hard over the last several years to try and enhance what we were able to do through fundraising. But opportunities are limited. We still have all our programs operating, and we're certain they'll be successful to the level they are, but chances of them going up further aren't that great. And the developmental charge funds were implemented several years ago and up around the $50,000 mark, but they have begun starting to fall off, and that to be allocated to ourselves is $5,000 less in the coming year. So in terms of funds coming from the municipality, it's a $44,000 difference asked in the grant, but in terms of the money coming from the municipality, in reality, it will be $39,000 because of the change in the developmental charges. We also have an ask for capital funds, and this is the third year that we have asked that. Maple Acre is a tremendous facility. I think a great job was done in terms of what was put into that building and what's capable of being done in that building. Fond Hill, the situation is not so much. It's a very good facility and people use it, and it serves many of the purposes, but it is 31 years old. Those that have been in Fond Hill for 31 years or close to that length of time recognize the changes that have happened in the community over that period of time in terms of population, in terms of how the community is being used, and there have been no major renovations over that period of time. Public spaces, we have public spaces that don't meet accessibility requirements, a major one being a elevator within the building and a requirement by the Disabilities Act to, over the next few years, to have an elevator available within the facility. Point out, councillors probably know this, but given a new council, the split in responsibilities for facilities is that the buildings are the town's responsibility. The buildings we have are town property. The contents inside the facilities are library property. So we're responsible for the furnishings, the equipment, the books, and things like that. The buildings historically have been a responsibility of the town. So that is why we are coming for the renovation ask. There's no dedicated, in terms of other shortcomings, there's no dedicated quiet space. Hallways are cramped, workspaces are cramped, and we have a basement that is basically unused. There are a couple of uses for several years. It's basically been a storage area. And we, as we said, on terms of things we've done, we have a feasibility study and a plan for being able to redo the basement so that staff that are currently using upstairs space, which is very accessible to the public, those staff can be moved downstairs and carry out their responsibilities down there, making that space on the main floor available for the public. We feel these are changes that would make the Fond Hill facility very workable for a number of years. It's hard to estimate what that would be and what the future would be in terms of a rebuild for the main branch. But our feeling is that this ask will allow us to carry on and offer better services to the whole community over the next several years. The feasibility was a $315,000 plan based on building costs versus internal furnishing costs and so on. That would be a breakdown of $222,000 for the town and $93,000 for the library, and we are prepared and we think capable of providing the $93,000 of our funding to be able to do that, and we put that request forward to the town again for consideration this year. So that concludes a very limited review of our library operations and issues and the resulting budget request from those issues. The library is committed to a conservative approach to our yearly budget and operations, and I think that's clear from the fact that we have been very reliable and having balanced budgets for at least 4 years and accumulating reserves that allow us to carry out our capital responsibilities and so on. Well, I was going to make a commitment that we'll continue to do that, but I would be making a commitment on behalf of the new board, which I can't do, but certainly I think that's the sentiment of the people that are on the library board and hopefully on the library board in the future. We asked for council's endorsement of our funding request and affirmation of the activities that take place within the Pelham Public Library. And I put out a very strong welcome to all councillors to come visit us. If you haven't been in the library for a while, it, as you can tell, has a lot of different resources and operations that might not have been there several years ago. So, and plus we are quite willing to tell our stories about our operations and what our needs are and what our issues are. So an open invitation to all of you, whether you come in a group or whether you want to come alone or in pairs, feel free to contact Amy and we'll make those arrangements. again, I'd like to thank you for having us here this evening, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Tim and Amy. Any questions from any counselors? Counselor Trophy?
Yeah, just, how many employees would make up the 752,000 salary for 2018?
We have 4 full-time, 7 or 8 part-time, and then 3 or 4 students.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Hahn?
On your second page, I think it is, you said over 100,000 in-person visits. How does that compare year over year?
It's gone up a little bit over the years, and then now it's been about plateaued for the past few years. It went up quite a bit at Maple Acre, when we opened Maple Acre, but that's usually
Everybody
an
wanted to
issue when
come
the
see
building
it,
does
yeah.
that. And it stayed steady at Maple Acre higher. Fawn Hill's kind of plateaued for a little while, I think probably because we're maxed out on space too.
Okay.
Counselor Stewart?
The increase in the cleaning costs, you said there were 4 asks for companies. It wasn't put out to public tender for that?
No, we send them out to the 4 cleaning companies that are in the area, the public companies.
Oh, okay. You might need to cast the net a little wider.
We ended up going with the same cleaning company as the town and the Welland Library, so we knew they were a reputable source.
Counselor Corey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Tim or Amy, the increase in your building maintenance and repairs, now, the contractor, does he clean the building every day, or?
Yeah, because it's a public building, it's probably 6 days a week, I think.
6 days a week?
6
And
days a week at Fawn Hill and 5 at Maple Acre.
And could we not, and this is just a suggestion, like, I know in the wintertime, you got boots and snow and salt and whatever, but in the summertime, a lot of the businesses would say, okay, you come every other day. I just wondered if that could help.
Well, we do have lesser services, so they only have to do the floors when it's a certain amount, and they charge us by the hour. So this is what they've estimated it's gonna cost us. We don't actually know what the final outcome will be.
Okay.
But
And there are public washrooms within the library that are open to the public, and certainly with the number of people we're getting in, there's a lot of usage within the washrooms, and I think there's a feeling that that would be certainly one area that needs ongoing.
One more question through you, Mr. Mayor. Like, how many hours would they take to clean one building? So they're cleaning you mentioned 4 buildings or 3 buildings?
2 buildings.
2 buildings.
Yes. So it depends on how many workers they would have, but the one guy would work a couple hours at each. Well, a couple hours at Fawn Hill and probably an hour at Maple Acre at the most.
Thank you.
Yeah, Counselor Wing?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, Tim, how's the recruitment going for the executive director? Because I'm looking at I would think that there's gonna be some savings there if you haven't replaced him yet for your annual salaries.
The current board, Kirk's last day was at the end of October. He submitted his resignation early in October. At one of our meetings, October, I can't remember. The decision was made with the new board coming in that it really should be their decision, how they wanted to handle that as opposed to our decision. What they might be looking for and who they might want would be different. So we have done some preliminary work in terms of gathering information on how recruitments have been going elsewhere in the province and sources and so on. So we've collected information that way, but we've left that decision as to the exact job description and the qualifications to the new board. Amy was acting CEO the last time, which was 5 years ago, and did the job for many months at that point in time. And we have all the confidence she'll be able to carry us through. In terms of the savings for the open position, Amy is filling that position. There's a person filling her position, and extra hours are being added to other staff to backfill the day-to-day operational things that Amy and the supervisor carry out. So some of that that salary is being expended on that. We're anticipating 5 or 6 months for a recruitment. That tends to be typical in that type of position. We haven't budgeted any recruitment costs in our budget. Again, that would be the decision of the new board as to how they want to conduct it, but our feeling would have been we'd cast a broad net on that, at least provincially, if not nationally. So what the cost would be of doing that type of recruitment, how do you get interviewees in, what do you do about moving costs, all those types of questions. So we feel out of the CEO salary, there wouldn't be a whole lot left. We have taken that into consideration.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. When we're talking about the unused basement space and finishing it for staff to do additional work in using the basement, what kind of work would you think staff would do in the basement?
Well, currently we have 2 staff in the middle of the building in an office space that can be opened up to the public. And one does technical, the computer work, and the other one does the cataloging of the books. Both things that are not public-centered items, so they're both things that they could be doing downstairs. We have 2 staff currently in the basement, but the conditions there are just, it was kind of like they just made space in a basement, never really renovated. Sort of kind of living in kind of like big closets almost.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of space down there though, so we could probably move 4 or 5 staff down there, because there's some staff that work behind the work area, behind the circ desk. And so we're hoping to open up to move our staff break room, which is very small, downstairs, not making it any bigger, but I'm opening that up as meeting space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, a few questions myself. So the requested town capital budget contribution at 222, so you didn't really break that down, but I take it the vast majority of that is for renovating the basement then?
Yeah, a big portion of it was for an elevator that
Yeah.
the town had put in because it has to be done by 2025 for accessibility.
Yes.
So I think 100,000 or 90,000 of it is for the elevator.
Yes, and that was my next question, because in this day and age of accessibility, I kind of figured that's mandated.
Because we have staff downstairs, if any of them had an accessibility issue at any point, like they
Yeah.
could all of a sudden have one,
Yes.
and we wouldn't be able to have them working anymore because there's no
Yes.
space upstairs for them.
Excellent, so you did have that, so the figure for the elevator that has to be installed within 5 years is 100,000, give or take?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And then the other 122,000 is for the renovations of the basement part then? Excellent. Okay, thank you. Do you, one thing that didn't show up, and maybe it would be interesting to know, maybe you don't use them, and whatever, is as the amount of volunteer, do you use a lot of volunteers?
We do. We use
Yeah.
volunteers. We use about 3,000 hours of
Okay,
volunteers a year.
yeah, see, that'd be an interesting, because that's a lot of hours, wow,
It is.
excellent.
We use them for fundraising, for Books on Wheels, for readers' buddies and art buddies and things like that.
Yeah.
We use them for a lot of the programming to help out, because one person in the programming room a lot of times is not enough.
Excellent.
But we can't use them at the desk because there's confidential information and
Yeah,
financial information.
yeah, and I don't know if this is a politically correct question to ask. The age of your volunteers, would it be students? Would it be retired? A good mix of everyone?
There's a mix. Definitely more volunteers are in the retiree section, definitely. We do get a good amount of students who need volunteer hours for certain things. For like the book sales and stuff, they're the ones that haul the books up from down in the basement. They get stored down there until it's time to actually have the book sale and things like that. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting and things like that. We've even had cleaning nights where we've had the students come out to get volunteer hours, and they clean more than we had, because we have so many different shelves there and the top shelves and stuff, and that's not always getting done. So we have them come in and do that.
Excellent. And one thing that is pretty interesting to see is your room, the fees, fines, and rentals at 36,000. And I believe, Tim, you said most of that was your room rentals.
I think it's more towards programming, though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Room rentals are probably about $3,000.
Oh,
in revenues
okay.
Right now, yeah.
Okay,
So
that
it's more
explains that.
programming.
Would that be per year? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was kind of high, but I was hoping, well, wow, if that is it, you're
Would be great
utilizing
if
your
it was,
buildings. Yes. Okay, I'm done my questions. Any other questions to wrap things up? Oh, Mary Ann?
I was wondering, is there an access to the outside from the lower level?
No.
Because I know it
There, yeah,
drops
there's
off.
there's 2 doors downstairs that have stairs that go up.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not the most accessible, but they are good for exits, for fire exits.
Oh, okay, but you can't just like walk into the lower level?
No, you'd have to walk upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a motion from Councillor Hahn, that Committee of the Whole receive and refer to staff the presentation and correspondence from Amy Gilmet, Acting Chief Executive Officer for the Pelham Public Library Board, to be included in the 2019 budget request for consideration by council. All those in favor? Motion carries. And next on the agenda, 5.3, Bond Hill Bandshell Concerts. And Gail, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Wait, before we do anything, I gotta say this, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, so this is one pair of the team that always puts up those, the bows on all the poles from Lookout Street, all down past Highway, down Highway 20, and they've done it for, since the dinosaurs were here in the town. Many years. I had the privilege of helping you with this one year, and like you say, you've been doing it for 15 or whatever years, and I just want to give them a round of applause. Thank you, Gail, and of course, the other half of the team,
Is
Paul
Paul
Ryan.
Ryan,
Yes,
and accolades
exactly.
to him, and I will definitely send those, and thank you again
Excellent.
for your help. But,
Okay, cool.
It's truly
Continue.
due to Paul Ryan's efforts. I've just been fortunate enough to work with him all these years, putting them up.
Excellent.
Tonight, I'm here, mayor, councilors, town staff, and community people, to introduce the Fonthill Bandshell Concerts. I'm the proud chairperson. We are a 12-member volunteer board who organize, fundraise, and put on the concerts with another 6 summer volunteers. We have brought the town of Pelham 13 years of Thursday evening entertainment, and it is our sincere hope to continue our efforts in 2019 and frankly for many more years. I'd like to recognize our volunteers, who include board member Jim Casson, who has not only been donating his time since the very beginning, 13 years with me, he's now famously immortalized with his drum kit on the fence out here in Peace Park. Thanks for that, Vicki. I'd also like to recognize our board members, David Swan, Sandra Warden, Jill Kappa, Carolyn Mullen, Gail Levy, Annie Holtby, Wayne Hosick, Brian Balches, Marlene Taylor, and Ray Barlow. Sadly, Ron, we had to accept your resignation due to your concerns over conflict of interest when you chose to run for council. We thank you for your generosity as a citizen and business person, and we wish you on the board, Ron.
Thank you.
We come to you tonight both to introduce ourselves and, for those of you newer to both town and council, to let you know who our board members are. It's a pretty dedicated group of citizens of Pelham. 5 members of our board are Pelham Citizen of the Year recipients. 6 have been recognized with Rotary Paul Harris Awards, and there's some pretty impressive CVs on our small board of directors. The Fonthill Bandshell Concerts began as a culmination of the permanent dedication of the Fonthill Bandshell to the town as the result of the Fonthill 150th Anniversaries Committee's fundraising and brainstorming to leave a permanent legacy in the wake of that celebration. In our 13 years of organizing the concert series, we have maintained our initial mandate to bring the community a quality, family-friendly lineup of entertainment each and every summer. We've seen the crowds grow, and with that, admittedly, some growing pains over the years. Most notably has been the parking challenges, most of which has been overcome now with the shuttle. We hope this year that the additional parking at the New Meridian Center will help eliminate, finally, all of our parking concerns. And I know Vicki is on board with that as well. We hope that the new council will work with us to solicit local businesses and churches to better utilize their after-5 parking lots. We have a great relationship with all the churches and most of the businesses, and we'd like to see the town help us expand parking with a positive approach, welcoming people to the community on Thursdays rather than lots of no parking signs, the approach that we have seen in the past. We'd like to take the time to thank the town, specifically staff, past councils, for the support we have received during our first 13 years of bringing music to the park. We've now submitted to this council our 2019 municipal grant application, asking specifically that you kindly continue, please, with our grant, our in-kind support. No monies, okay? Relax, taxpayers, relax. We're not asking for money. It's simply in-kind support. We hope that you will continue to waive the band shell rental fees and that you will continue to supply the public washrooms, the park maintenance, the street closing for our dance floor, our musicians' use of these council chambers for their change room, and providing the shuttles. We ask that if your budget will allow, that you might also consider some other improvements, many of which we've requested for a number of years. First and foremost on our list is the park requires some grading. It needs to have it to make level and comfortable seating for our patrons. Mayor Junkin, you saw for yourself how industrious our attendees can be each and every week to keep themselves from falling down the hill. Even with their efforts building their platforms and what they do, we do have many that have fallen forward in their chairs every week. Thankfully, though, we've had only minor injuries to date and no serious accidents that we're aware of. Our long-term goal is that together we will tier the park for more efficient and level seating. I've talked to many of you councilors about this. But we're realistic, we're patient. We know that you have your challenges and you must address your own financial concerns at present. But please know that it is our long-term goal and we hope that it might be considered at some point. Secondly, and more urgently, for the safety of both our volunteers and our attendees, the park requires a couple things. We need more lighting. By the end of August, it's dark when the band shell concerts end, and there's very little lighting in that park, and it's hard for people to see out. Whether you're stable or not, it is a challenge to make your exits. We need the lighting done. The trees need to be trimmed, and the perimeter pavers surrounding the band shell that helped pay for this band shell 13 years ago when the 150th committee built it for the town, they need to be lifted, leveled, and reinstalled because they're looking like this. Thirdly, we continue to ask for more handicap parking. Specifically, two things. We'd like to see better monitoring of the municipal lot so that non-handicapped people aren't parking there during the concert and Thursday night experience. And also that we might be able to together approach some of the local businesses within walking distance that additional spots might be able to be found. Next, the band shell itself needs to be power washed and it needs to be repainted, if that might be considered in your budgets. Item 5, last year, and frankly against our wishes, the town chose to move the liquor area fencing closer to our band shell seating area. It's our request that it may be moved back to the sidewalk. We agreed last year, as staff knows, to leave it as a trial, but we have made staff aware that it is our desire to have it return to where the sidewalk was because we do feel that it's encroaching on our seating area and it was negatively impacting the enjoyment of the concert goers. Item 6, we need more garbage containers. Please. And beside each garbage container, a recycle box. That's all we ask. Very simple. Please, please, please. Number 7, I'd ask your electrical people within the town to check the plugs throughout the park. Many of them are no longer working. So there are times when we need to run extra extensions and we're scrambling because the power's not there. Lastly and respectfully, we'd ask for the town to share the financial statements on the Thursday night experience, and that we, the band shell committee, be asked for input on how we might collectively utilize the proceeds from the beer and wine sales for the benefit of all aspects of the Thursday night experience. We, your band shell volunteer organization, commend each of you, councillors and Mayor Junkin, firstly for taking the time out of your busy lives to have run for town council. It's not a simple undertaking. We congratulate each of you in your successful campaigns and want to let you know that you have our support as you have to address the myriad of challenges ahead. We wish to work with you for the continued betterment of our community, and we hope that keeping the joy of music on Thursdays, the Fonthill Band Shell, is one of the things that you will embrace and allow our group to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Gail. Questions from councillors?
Cool. Thank you.
No?
Thank you.
Wait, Gail, go, get over here.
There were no questions.
No, I have questions.
We needed some thinking time.
Yeah, we just need a little time here. It was a nice presentation, a lot of requests. I'm glad that like everyone on here on council, that there was no dollar request. Thank you. I don't know just how, I mean, none of these are big ticket items. I let it be known that as far as the terracing goes, I'm hoping that maybe we can, with all the landscapers we have in the town, and I'll work with Vicky on this, and obviously your group, we'll see if we can't get some kind of traction on getting a volunteer day or a couple of days together. Maybe we can see about doing that. I think that's the biggest item on here. Yeah, myself, a couple of skid steers and wheelbarrows and a couple of strong backs. Golly, we could soon look after those chairs going like that.
Exactly.
For sure. The other request, like I say, as far as checking outlets and yeah, they're just little irritants, but like you say, it all goes into making the evening your job a lot easier. And when your job is easier, the night's a lot better for everyone involved. I know that the parking, you mentioned the LCBO store, definitely some. Yeah, we should be able to talk to those people and get that. That's a lot of spots right there, right by the
It
thing.
is, and we had approached them last year, and they'd agreed to give us half of the lot, but we need to make that official from an insurance point. And
Okay.
I know that there are some
Excellent.
I's that have to be dotted and T's crossed from the town's perspective, so.
Now, the one I found kind of strange, I guess, in some ways I can understand it, but I got a feeling that the one that's going to have the most kickback is the respectfully asking for the town's financial statements on Thursday night. Can you explain that just a little bit more? Just
Sure, what we had asked is, so essentially, the town started the beer and wine sales due to the success of the evening and everything else.
Yeah.
So if I can be boastful, I guess,
Yeah.
we're the primary reason for people coming out on Thursdays, and the beer and wine sales have worked well because it's helped pay for the shuttle and the washrooms and the myriad of things and details.
yeah.
Some of it, of course, is only required because we are selling beer and wine, i.e. the security fencing and those types of things are required only because we are selling alcohol on Thursday nights, and that's a provincial legislation that must be, from what I understand, in place.
Yes.
Those laws may or may not be softening as time goes on, but at the end of the day, there is money that is specifically set aside, or supposed to be set aside for the entire Thursday night experience. We have a good working relationship with staff, but we're not always apprised of the entire situation. And we've had a lot of things on our wish list over the last number of years, which seem to have been put here. And I guess our hope is that some of ours may come up. We were very surprised when the permanent fence went up. It looks great. We have no complaints about it, but we were surprised, given the list of some of the things that we've had over on our list for many years, that we were able to do that fence. So that's what we're asking, is if there can be communication and collaboration as opposed to, because we are trying to make it a collective experience.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're both definitely a team as such. And the question of the moving the fence back,
Yes.
so are you saying then that the people are obviously drinking on the one side of the fence, and then they're too loud for the people that I see?
Precisely.
And you've had-
We had a lot of complaints this summer.
Okay,
And,
okay,
our job as volunteers is
yes.
not to have to deal with people complaining about someone else's drunkenness,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what that fence was, the reason for the fence. Okay, excellent. And now I'm sorry, Councillor Court?
Yes, I'm going to probably add to that, to number 5. What is your concern with the new laws, with the marijuana laws, that I understand that if you're drinking, you can also have, you could smoke in the same area?
Our understanding is, and I stand to be corrected, Ron, but my understanding is it's no different than smoking. It's a public park, so smoking is prohibited in a public park. Hence, marijuana smoking should also be prohibited in a public park. That's the way I currently understand the laws. So our hope is, because cigarette smoking is not permitted in a public park, marijuana smoking likewise would not be permitted in the park.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, so we are smoke-free public parks? And do we have signs for that? Around the trees or poles around the parks? Okay,
Okay,
that's all. Thank you.
yep. Anyone else? Okay, Gail, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And keep up the good work. I'll be Thursday. Thank you. Okay. Motion by Councillor Corr that Committee of the Whole receive and refer to staff the correspondence from the Font Hill Bandshell Committee, Concert Committee, outlining their 2019 budget request to be included in the 2019 budget for consideration by council. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And 5.4, traffic calming, traffic light. Jay Abbott for budget open house. Mr. Abbott?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, I'm surprised to be called to the floor. I thought I'd get away with a brief email to Ms. Quinlan, but now that I have the floor, briefly, I can go through my 3 points. And on quite the same import as to what you've heard in the previous 3 presentations, but they're very important to those people that are affected. Essentially, the first point is the problem of traffic on Pancake between Haste and Pelham. It's increasing. We expect it will increase more. The speed is quite surprisingly fast. It's a bit of a racetrack, particularly during peak hours, but also surprisingly in between as well. We're suggesting speed bumps or some aspect of traffic calming. It's a short area, but a lot of people use it to get to the east side of the town, and they move from the west to the east. It's the best venue they could have, which is Pancake. So that's number one. Number two, many of us have experienced trying to get out of Pancake onto Pelham and turning north or left. One of these days, I'm going to make a mistake and get caught up, but it's a fine judgment. You're really trying to dash between cars that are coming north and going south, and occasionally there's one coming at you through John. Now, the pedestrian light that's there is really quite confusing. If it's on, you're really not sure what to do if you're in a car on Pancake, because you can't see a light. You can only judge by what's going on by having the traffic stop. And the light goes on and says, well, then perhaps it's an opportunity to race across, and that's what happens. I think there's going to be a serious accident there sooner than later. And so what we're asking for, when I say we, this is all of those that travel Pancake and those that live on the street that I do on Pickwick Place, a traffic light that really is a traffic light, and one of those that has a button, so if you have to cross as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist, you can push the button, the traffic will stop, and away you go. Now, the third point is it's very local. I live on Pickwick Place, and I've been wrestling with the town on the issue of lights since May of 2015. It's been a frustrating experience. I have the scars on my back to prove it. Ostensibly, the reason we had an issue in the first place is that somehow, for some reason, town felt that the lights on Pickwick Place were perhaps too expensive. There are 7 standards, not showing enough, not giving enough light out at nighttime. The members of Pickwick Place, the citizens of Pickwick Place, then wrestled with the town on a number of occasions because the proposed lighting was to be 25 feet high as opposed to what's there now, which is 12. And we felt that it was really too intrusive and quite unnecessary because the initial cost was tabled as $130,000, which seems a very large amount for replacing 7 light standards. The other aspect of that was the shrubbery needs a little tender loving care. Trees were being cut down and overgrown. It really needs a little pruning, and the shrubbery needs to be spruced up. And this can be done, I think, with some tender loving care every spring, but in the past it's been neglected. Our proposal here, and when I say our, I mean the citizens of Pickwick Place, is to forget the whole thing, save money, don't worry too much about the shrubbery. If we can have a springtime attention, that would be good. Don't replace the light standards. We love them the way they are. There's only one aspect. I'm a bit of a birder myself, but the woodpecker holes on the wooden sheathing, I think it's a little overdone on the part of the woodpeckers. I'm not quite sure which variety they are, whether they're the yellow-bellied or whether there's the downy or the hairy, but nevertheless, the holes are there, virtually in every single of the 7 wood framings. So our suggestion is low cost, just replace the framing. And let's forget about the initial push to upgrade lighting and all the rest, because it's really quite adequate as it stands. So that, as I say, this isn't quite the import of what you've heard before, but it's very important to those that drive Pancake and those that live on Pickwick Place. So I'd be pleased to answer questions. It's a pretty simple issue, so.
Before I turn it over to the councils, I'll ask the CAO, you being here as opposed to the rest of us. So what's your take? I can remember back in when I was sitting as a councillor, I do remember that a town staff member at the time did seem to want to make a mountain out of a molehill, whatever the story. So what's your take on the lighting situation there? Mr. Abbott tells us that it is adequate, just have to do the light poles. What do you remember of?
A quick correct, Mr. Mayor, that the request was to replace the light standards. I know that staff had looked at that and quite accurately was very expensive. And for the amount of light standards compared to what the if you were to change them out, what were you going to gain as far as lighting coverage, et cetera? It turned out to be fairly minimal. As far as the maintenance goes on the island that's referred to, that's a staffing issue, absolutely, and that's something that I would look at the director to start to plan for spring. Pruning, things like that are done on a priority basis, and acknowledge that the full attention hasn't been paid there because of a number of other areas that we've been looking at trying to maintain and spruce up. So that does need to be provided some attention, and I agree that the light standards is, notwithstanding any comments from the public works directors, are adequate, and I think that the recommendation is reasonable. As far as the lit intersection, I don't know if you're asking me about that or
No, go ahead, yeah.
Again, that's something that was many hours of council discussion about how to achieve a crosswalk at that corner, and that was what was recommended by staff and by the region. There's, I would say, not a lot of argument from the staffing side as far as it makes practical sense to make that a fully lit intersection as described, and you could press the button to walk across the street. Again, that's a large ticket item, hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a fully lit intersection in, so it would be quite simply a budget consideration and a priority item for council. Is this a priority or not? And if it is, then council would need to look at providing the funding to upgrade that current situation.
Okay, thank you. Because the pedestrian light has been there, what, 5 or 6, or time flies, maybe it's more than that. How many years has it been since we put that pedestrian light there?
I would say 4.
Yeah.
Top of my head,
Sounds
4
about
years,
right. Okay.
approximately, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, South Pelham is not getting any less traffic on it, that's for sure. So maybe if that light was adequate 4 years ago, you're probably hitting the nail on the head, stating that is time to put a full lighted intersection there. But like the CAO has stated, it'll be a budgetary consideration. I'll open up the questions to any members of council now. Councilman Corr.
Yes, I know, Mr. Abbott, you and I talked several times, and I did visit your neighborhood, and you're right, there are a lot of woodpecker holes on some of those standards. So what you're just basically looking at is that we resurface it. Either, I'm not an expert on birds, but I would think that if you got a vinyl, maybe the birds wouldn't appreciate vinyl, and we would never have to paint it or look at it again. Your issue with the Pancake Lane and Hayes, are you just looking for a couple stop signs?
Well, that would be one aspect. In the back of my mind, I was thinking speed bumps.
Speed bumps?
Yeah, I think my experience in putting in stop signs in other communities that I've lived in, it sometimes creates more of a problem than you're trying to solve, simply because there's a stop and then a revving up again to get going, and so it goes. I think speed bumps would appear to be the most practical and the least costly.
And through you again, Mr. Mayor. I think it was last year or a year ago, didn't we have a monitor with, it told you how fast the cars were going? I'm positive that happened on.
Aware of it.
Okay, on Pancake, or I'm positive. I probably was going too fast, and I did slow down at once. But I'm positive there was a indicator of how fast you were going. Okay,
Not aware of it.
that's all I need. Thank you.
Perhaps the Director of Public Works, what happened to that monitor? He used to be around hither and thither.
Where was it? Do you know? Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna ask the fire chief. He seems to know where that.
Okay.
Through Mr. Mayor, I can't tell you exactly where it is, but our bylaw division uses it once in a while. We get some complaints. We pluck it around town. So
Okay, so it is still,
here
it's still
somewhere.
around. Okay, well, maybe we'll have to see about placing it on Pancake Lane or whatever. Something maybe that Mr. Abbott could to discuss with the bylaw then, perhaps? Okay. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councilor Stewart.
People in that neighborhood, through the mayor, sorry, they could also have a conversation with the local police, express their concerns, and ask them if they could periodically come and put a nice little speed trap there.
Sure. Good idea.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. I just want to make one comment on the signal, at the pedestrian signal at Pancake, and Pelham. The town has retained a consultant that is looking at some of our intersections to look at safety issues and whether or not if intersections such as that would warrant a signal. And so we're in the process of doing that study right now. And when we have those results, we'll consider that as some improvements there. So
Excellent.
okay, just so you know.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Through the
Counselor?
mayor to Mr. Marr, there's two other intersections that are the same situation. So if you're having a consultant look at that, there's also the one at Bacon and Pancake by Spruce Side. That's another one of those lights. And yeah, that's and Church Hill. I find that one is crazy difficult as a pedestrian
Yes, through you, Mr.
and
Mayor.
as a driver.
To the counselor, those are being looked at.
Okay,
for sure.
thank you.
Those ones are.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Abbott,
Thank you,
for
Mr.
our
Mayor, Counselor.
presentation. Thank you. Motion from Councillor Wink, that Committee of the Whole receive and refer to staff the correspondence from John, I'm sorry, I called you Jim, it's John Abbott, to be included in the 2019 budget request for consideration by council. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, so now we go to the public.
Right, that was it for the scheduled delegations, although we did have the Rotary Club come this afternoon and make a request.
Okay.
So if you want to open the floor before you receive this one.
Okay. So that's the scheduled request. Now we will open it up, the floor, to any public requests that are present tonight. We ask you to identify yourself after you approach the microphone and make your request public.
Pesca. I'm a resident in Pelham for 36 years, and I sent in a email to our budget to the town this afternoon, and I just want to highlight a few items that I had on my list of concerns. One is a splash pad for the town. It's been an issue that's been repeatedly asked for over the years. I think we're the only town and municipality in Niagara region that doesn't have one. Even Port Robinson has a super pad. Welland has just put another new one in, and I think our children and grandchildren deserve that amenity in our community. And my concern is that there's been talk about where would we put one. It's been talked about putting it in the Pelham Pool area, Fonthill Pool and the pit. Harold Back Park came up as a discussion. The playground northwest of the old Haste Arena, that was planned, and also how about around the MCC? There's all kinds of children there, and it might be an ideal place for a location. The second item I want to bring forward is a playground at the MCC. We've got all kinds of facilities there, rinks and the arenas and the gymnasiums. And they've even got that little playground inside for the kids, for the library. But we've got no place for the kids to play. I've been there and I've witnessed it more than once. The kids are walking the trusses to get exercises, which is ridiculous. It's a safety issue that needs to be addressed properly, and it can't be left or somebody's going to get injured there. But we need a playground at the MCC. Street lighting is a major issue. We need to standardize it. We got light standards of every make, model, and vintage, and we need to standardize it and get into a standard lighting. The new MCC has got 3 standards of lighting in that facility, which is ridiculous. Who maintains it? Pickwick's got a problem. The town's got a major problem. You need to standardize it and get to LED lighting and get some cost reduction. And from my engineering background, you can probably get a 30 to 50% savings in energy costs. And I'm not sure if there's any government incentive on that anymore, but probably not with the economy the way it is. And I mentioned about the Peace Park, but that was already brought up earlier by Mrs. Baltes, Yale. The other one is pedestrian crosswalk lights, and that was brought up by Mr. Abbott. There's 3 sets of pedestrian lights which were installed by the town on South Pelham. These lights were installed primarily for safety of pedestrian traffic for council approval at a cost of about $200K, which was much more than was originally planned, but against, and I got this information from Niagara Regional Engineering people, it was against their recommendation that it be put in because the traffic flow was not there to justify it. It's strictly for pedestrian. And what they put in, these are these pedestrian lights, and they're a pain in the whatever. It's ridiculous. I've seen school buses almost hit. I've seen cars almost hit. I've seen people almost hit. And it's got to be resolved. You're going to have a major accident and a lawsuit, and then something will be done. I'm tired of this discussion on this. It's just going around in circles every year, and it keeps on expanding with no solution. Traffic flow on Highway 20. The flow of traffic through town west of Station Street through Hay Street needs to be improved. The increase in traffic as a result of town growth in East Font Hill, Lookout Ridge, subdivision, etc., have all impacted the volume of traffic. The volume of traffic, heavy truck traffic, also needs to be studied. Positive changes need to improve traffic flow before a critical event occurs. It's getting ridiculous trying to go through at prime time, morning and evening, especially on 20. And the traffic on Pelham is getting a lot worse too, and it's a lot of heavy truck traffic, hauling cargo vans, tractor trailer units. They need to be banned from going and using Pelham. And use Highway 20, go straight through, and then whatever they have to do, come in some other back way. Use Rice Road or whatever. There are several in terms of road repairs, there are several high traffic roadways. South Pelham from College Street to South Town limits, Welland Road from South Pelham Street to Hay Street, and Pelham Town Square west and south of the Town Hall that need pavement replacement. The municipal services, water, sewer, storm sewer, etc., in these areas need to be reviewed as to capacity, condition, etc., before repaving. I know this has been an issue. I put in I don't know how many PSRs to get potholes repaired, especially at Port Robinson and Pelham Street, where you get crossing for kids and everything else. I twisted my ankle there one time, and I've seen kids. There's right in the main traffic aisle. They're impeded. And another issue is storm sewer replacement. The condition of the corrugated pipes in the town need to be inspected for condition. In 2018, the town had to replace a pipe in the Kuna Park area, intersection of Stella and Vera Street, which had collapsed. I reported it to the PSR, and it took a year and a plus to get it repaired. Fortunately, nothing serious happened. When the town public works staff tied into the pipe on east side of Stella Street, basically punched a hole with the excavator and stuck the pipe in and did some grouting and some patching with very crude method. It was very poor condition and needs replacement. And that's all along Stella Street from north to south, and that whole area is all corrugated steel piping, just like you would use for a culvert or whatever. It's in poor condition. Fortunately, the ones coming off of Pelham down Vera Street and down John Street, they seem to be fairly sound, but the one on the east side is sitting in water all the time, and the bottom, when they took the pipe out, it was, I'd say, only about 80% there. A lot of it was rusted right out. And I guarantee it's going to be a long, and I've talked to Jason about that, and hopefully it's on the consideration. And then my other major consider from an operations standpoint is the Meridian Community Center. The operational cost, staffing, utilities, etc. for this new facility needs to be critically reviewed. The utilization of the facility also needs to be studied, usage versus operating hours, and thus revenue. The proposed budget to council was that it would cost only $200,000 more than the current. That's a dream. We need to go in reality, set in it and evaluate it and determine what it's going to cost us. We built the building, we got to pay for it, which is a major cost. Now we got to go and operate the facility efficiently and under control. Please consider the above items in the 2019 budget deliberation process. In the end, your goal should be to maintain efficient and reliable services to the citizens of Pelham and minimize impact on property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Haska.
So you've got that on the email. I sent it to the budget, and it's to two of the councilors, Ward 3, but I never, the rest of you should get it through town.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Haska? Okay, so Bill, I want to go back to the lights, the pedestrian lights. So, and I can understand, so you're against the lights even being there?
The lights, I know the situation. I cross Pelham many a time. When I walk downtown often to get my mail and everything, and I cross it, and I basically do it when the traffic's slow. I cross it other than the main intersection because it's just convenient for me. But for children and seniors that are less mobile than myself, then it needs to, or those with handicapped walkers or wheelchairs or whatever, they do it at the main locations. And the one at Churchill, when they first put that in, I don't know how many times I saw near accidents there. Buses, cars, and people that come into the community don't know the area, and they're trying to figure out where they're supposed to go, and they see that light, and people press and they're walking across. How come they're walking? They don't see, there's no light for them to see coming down Churchill Street. They don't know what am I at?
Yes.
Same thing down at John and Pancake. It's the same situation. Less traffic there, and then you go down to Beacon, and Spruceside, there's less crossing there too. But it's just I talked to the guys at Regional. I'm a professional engineer, and I talked to guys at Regional on it. I contacted when it was done, and they told me, they said that we did not recommend it. The town of Pelham wanted it, they paid for it, and we've installed it, and we maintain it. But they don't recommend it. It's not a, when you come to that location, you see the lights, you just assume they're traffic lights. You don't know they're just pedestrian, and people are I'd say, anybody who's new to the town are confused.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know at the bottom of Churchill, I mean, we've heard this for many years, trying to do something a little different. And we put that one sign up that when you're going to take a left-hand turn, you had to watch the light, what have you.
That's a busy intersection, a lot of traffic.
Yes, I know
and,
it is.
And there's heavy, big trucks in that. You can't read the signs if traffic's going across, and so you're waiting for an opportunity to go. And so when you get a go, and then you see, oh no, what's this? Pedestrians are going across, but you got no advance warning, and you don't know what to anticipate.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we haven't had an accident, but I won't guarantee that it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, well, like Public Works said, we are going to be looking at some of the, doing traffic studies and looking at those intersections, and whether or not we can get to them this year to make them full lights, whatever.
Well, I think through the engineering study, you're going to determine the need, okay?
Yeah.
Do we need those? Maybe we can go and, maybe we can reduce it down to one.
Yeah.
Get rid of the Pancake and get rid of the Bacon, and just have the one at Churchill. I know there's major traffic issue there.
Yeah.
It's severe.
Okay.
Whereas the further you go south, the less severe the priority, and I think, but you might as well look at them all at the same time.
Yes. I don't know, Lon, Councilor Lon?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The Director of Finance, do you think we'll ever get to a point where we'll have a profit and loss monthly statement on the community center? I call them profit and loss, so it breaks down what, your revenues with your monthly cost, like your hydro, and I know some of those numbers would have to be accrual, but it gives you a or a month-to-month operation, so for 12 months, you would understand where you're moving forward, so then we don't get into problems 6 months later saying, wait a minute, we didn't budget properly, or we could correct if we're overspending on certain things, we correct these expenditures.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are going to be bringing monthly revenue and expenses for the town as part of the CAL reports, and we can look at bringing the community center separately. We can look at that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you have an idea what our overcost in that community center so far this year?
No, right now I can't give you that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's just-
I apologize
Yeah.
if I,
Okay.
I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just, we're just wrapping up year-end right now, so the year is December 31st, it's January 7th, and we're just waiting for all of the invoices to come in, for us to do proper accruals, and as soon as we get the number, we'll bring it to council.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Haska.
We have, okay, so Mr. Jeffs is here. We have the Rotary Club's before Mr. Jeffs.
Okay,
So
so
we
we
have
dual.
Mr. Jeffs that asked, and the Rotary Club.
Okay, so Mr. Jeff?
Chair, councillor, staff, and citizens. I'm Jim Jeffs. I'm here as chair of the Pelham Community Preservation Coalition. And our coalition asks that there be some money in the budget to help pay for funding as far as bylaws and licensing of cannabis production facilities. So it will either reduce or eliminate the negative effects on the municipality of Pelham. And by negative effects, I mean that orange glow you see in the sky, that skunk-like smell you see or can smell much of the time, and the reduction value of houses, because as it is now, these production facilities are exactly next door to residences. Now, if those residents go to sell, that has to have a very negative impact on the sale of the property. The other thing is, there's just, if you look at the number of facilities that are here now, they're paving over good farmland that's become just parking lots. What used to be cherry orchards aren't there anymore. Where we used to grow cucumbers and tomatoes, now it's cannabis. So that's something we'd like to see stopped, really. And what we're looking at now is outdoor grow-ops, which is supposed to start in 2019. So you can have strawberry fields or what used to grow corn grow-ops with heavy-duty fencing and cameras. And I don't think that really adds anything to our community, and it's a place where it's just become a retirement community where people want to come to have a lot of grow-ops. I think is just a negative thing. And the other thing is that presently they're on agricultural land, and agricultural land pays 1/10 the taxes of industrial land, so it's just a great place. It's just very attractive for those places to come here. And the goals of our coalition are just to mention three, is to change the zoning of these cannabis productions that are in agriculture zone. You can't make them move, but then if they're doing any processing at all, make it industrial, because then they can pay reasonable taxes. And the other thing is, I think we have enough now. We have 6 cannabis production facilities now in Pelham. We don't need more, so there should be a moratorium, no more allowed, and no more expansion of the existing ones, because they keep buying property next door. Redican on Foss Road bought 28 acres, the farm next door. Actually, my daughter used to buy hay there, and you know, if you consider growing hay compared to cannabis, and actually I can give you some numbers. Let me see. CanTrust for the third quarter of 2018 made $12.8 million, which is a 1.5% increase over the previous year. So that's $50 million a year. Now, I'm not a farmer. I don't know what people make when they're growing strawberries, but I'm pretty sure it's not $50 million a year. So the problem that presents itself is somebody has land and they're growing oats or whatever, and they're given an offer, say their land's worth $500,000. Somebody comes along and says, "I'll give you $3 million." Well, what are they going to do? They're going to say, "Well, I don't, it doesn't seem the right thing to do." I don't think so. People are people. They're going to sell. And the consequence is, what's going to happen maybe in 10 years, Pelham will look entirely different. Instead of having people come here from Toronto, stopping and buying fresh fruit, or picking strawberries or picking raspberries, it's going to be all cannabis production facilities. And this council can do something about it through bylaws and licensing. And that's a matter of fact, if you look at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, they have detailed information on what to do, right from day one, right through to, today. And most communities have something in place already that they've already done something. So there's looking at land use. That's one thing you look at, and then what's happening in each building. As a matter of fact, there's a law firm in Toronto that if you're looking at starting a cannabis facility, if you go to them, they'll tell you that before you consider starting one of these facilities somewhere, that you have to look and consider what the town's bylaws are like. And unfortunately, Pelham doesn't have any bylaws. But many communities have already enacted bylaws. Toronto, Burlington, and Welland have bylaws in place that if there's a cannabis production facility, the lot line, that's the lot, not the building, the lot must be 70 meters from any residential building or any residential property, commercial property, industrial property, or open space. That's 70 meters. It's not a matter of having a facility being 15 meters from the property line. This is the property line to property line. So according to what I've read, there's a lot of planning involved here, different departments getting together, and there's a cost. So I would ask that this council, in their budget, has plans, sort of goals set of what they want to do, and what we'd like to do as the coalition is work with council. Matter of fact, I had sent Mayor Junkin an email back in September when he's a candidate about this issue. And he mentioned if he were elected, he would work with the community to solve the problem. Then we had a conversation at an event, a New Year's levy on Saturday, so I cornered him once again. He said, "Do you remember that email I sent you?" And he said, "Yes, we can work together." So I asked, actually I see there are a number of committees on the town that do many, many things. I don't see anything there about cannabis. And there are many committees talk about the effect it has on the community, what's going to happen, and I can't think of anything else that will have more impact on the place we live than having all these cannabis grow-ops all through here. So I ask that you please get a committee. I've spent hundreds of hours on this now. And when I have a passion for something, I just keep going at it. So our committee is very active, and we'll help in any way we can. It's just a matter of letting us know and making a committee to work together, and we'd be happy to do that. If you have any questions, I'll attempt to answer them.
Council have any questions? Mr. Jess, we gave you a lot of leeway here. But this was to talk about the budget tonight, and you did seem to wander somewhere off that path. I realize some of what you're saying is indeed with the budget, but the cannabis issue, believe me, is on the front of everybody's minds here, not just yours, not just your committees. All the residents of this town are concerned about it. Council is aware of it. Just give us some time. Tonight was a budget meeting. So, no, I'm not trying, you're a great guy, and we get along great, but really, we gotta narrow the focus a bit. That's all I'm asking.
All right.
And if anybody has any questions, by all means, ask the questions. It was a great presentation, a little bit off the path, I thought, but that's fine. You made your point, and that's fine. No questions?
Okay, thank you for your indulgence then.
Thank you, Jim.
So we do have the Rotary Club that has a presentation.
Okay. Do you want to do them now, Nancy?
Maybe after this, John.
Okay. That's what I find, Ken.
Good evening. I'm Ken Sothens. I'm the president of the Fenwick Lions. Mr. Mayor, councilors, and staff members, thank you for inviting me here tonight to speak on behalf of the Lions Clubs and the residents of Fenwick concerning the electronic billboard sign located at the entrance of Centennial Park on Church Street in Fenwick. As many aren't aware, the electronic billboard sign has been inoperable since September of 2018 and having sporadic operation leading up to that time. It was reported water damage to the internal electronic components eventually caused the sign to fail. It was reported back to the town's maintenance staff and myself from Creative Sign Works that the town had hired to look at the sign and establish what was wrong with it. And it was reported by them that it's unrepairable due to the fact that the parts were no longer available to support old technology and design of those signs, and that it would require replacement with a current to-date design model sign. The sign was installed in around the year of 2009 by the town of Pelham with the Fenwick Lions and the Fenwick Lioness, each contributing $5,000 and $1,000 towards the overall cost of the sign. The sign is important to the community because it is a way and means of communicating to the residents of Pelham, and not only Fenwick, of upcoming main events such as the town's events and programs, to the Fenwick Carnival, the Santa Parade, the July 1st Parade, Summerfest, and to the Fenwick Lions Club's events. That's just to name a few of the things that get posted on the sign. My recommendation is for the town to include the cost of replacing the sign in their 2019 budget. And furthermore, I would encourage the town to seek a second estimate to the current estimate of $12,189 that was presented to the town from Creative Sign Works. Just to remind the town, it is your sign. We would just like to have it fixed or replaced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Sutherland.
questions?
Yep. Any questions for Mr. Sutherland? Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The actual messaging on the sign, does the Fenwick Lions take care of that?
No,
part?
that's
No,
totally
the
the
town does that?
responsibility of the town. If we want a message changed on the sign, we call Jody Hendricks, staff member of the town. We tell her what we would like to have changed, and she comes down and programs the sign.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Director of Recreation, Vicki, you have anything to say on that, or seeing as your department was referenced, but whatever.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The sign has been, it was installed 10 years ago, I would say,
Yes.
approximately, and we have both benefited from the sign. We have had occasional issues with it, especially this past year. It'd work on and off, you know, and maintenance would go out and try to fix it, and finally, this is just a estimate. If approval was granted, we would obviously put out an RFP for replacement, but we just need an idea of what was wrong with the sign and if it could be replaced and a estimated cost.
Beauty. Thank you. Great. Any other questions for Mr. Sutherland? Oh, thank you, Ken. Oh, we got one more. Oh.
The Rotary Club has.
After sharing what.
I will only take a moment, I promise, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
no problem at all. Go ahead.
I'm not asking for any financial budgetary increase, but I have been the chair of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and the vice chair of the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee. And I think, I'm not sure if you all know, but the town of Pelham has been designated an age-friendly community under the World Health Organization. And that isn't something that just happens once. That's an ongoing process to ensure that decisions that are made regarding the town follow the guidelines of WHO. And of course, the other piece of legislation that we're dealing with is the AODA. And I have to say that the town of Pelham has always been right at the top of the list in addressing those issues. So congratulations on that. But it's something that needs to, again, be continually built in to the decisions that you make. And particularly when I see things like eliminate sidewalk snow clearing. We need to ensure that those sidewalks are cleared for accessibility purposes, not just for those with mobility difficulties, but for seniors, for all of us. I think that's very important. And I think there's also a report that went to last council about some work that needs to be done on the sidewalks generally. So hopefully you'll take that into account with your many, many deliberations that you're going to be dealing with after this meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Before I turn it to council, Mr. CEO, am I right in saying that, thinking that the province has mandated that municipalities have now got to do it? It used to be a choice, but now it's mandated that the municipalities have got to do a sidewalk slope clearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's my understanding. I can refer to the Director of Public Works, but as a minimum maintenance standard and liabilities, the province has indicated, it's my understanding that we are now obligated, liability-wise, to clear sidewalks.
Yes, okay. Anything to add to that?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on the presentation from council? No? Okay. Oh, we're going to have, the clerk has a present, that's you. Okay, great. Thank you.
She's going to set it up for me.
Oh, okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, senior staff, and members of the gallery, thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. I am the past president of the Rotary Club of Font Hill. My name is Frank Adamson. I also chair a committee that's looking to establish a Rotary Fitness Trail as part of the East End development. These are just some pictures of what is there now. This is paved, and this is all, as I say, part of the East End development. This is Wellspring Niagara, so a shot looking down there. Again, this is down Rice Road. This is at the end of Rice Road at the lagoon. This shot is basically Rice Road and Highway 20. So the point here is that what you're seeing is a series of trails that was put in, developed there. What we want to do is we want to add equipment to that. So similar to what's in some of the parks here. This is from Howard Block Park. And so just some different ideas of what we could put in there. We are not asking for dollars. As a matter of fact, the Rotary Club has committed $25,000 towards this project. We've already made a payment of $5,000. As Tim Wright recognized earlier in his presentation in regards to the library board, we partnered with the library to put in the reading nook for children and the community center. We were asked to actually support the community center inside, and as a club, our view was that we would like to do something outside, but as part of that development. So that would be a commitment of, we've already paid $5,000, and we'll pay $5,000 for each of the next 4 years towards this trail. The very first slide, which you may not have seen, is basically a sign that's actually a new sign that's just been put up at the Steve Barr Trail. That was funded by the Rotary Club many years ago with a significant contribution from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And we have had some meetings with the past mayor and with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee in regards to partnering with us on this trail. We have something in Rotary called Early Act. Early Act are basically it's a club at AK Wink that's supported by our Rotary Club We have Interact at the high school, and we have something for 18 to 30-year-olds, which is called Rotaract, which our club just co-sponsored with 2 other clubs. And we also have Wellspring Niagara. So we want to work with all of those groups in putting together a plan for this. Estimated cost of this would probably be close to $100,000. We're not asking you for those dollars. Our commitment is $25,000, and with the support of the town, we would approach the Ontario Trillium Foundation once again to try to get them to give the town $75,000 towards this trail. In consideration of this, once it would be established, it would be the responsibility of the town to maintain the equipment that's on there. This would also be wheelchair accessible. The nice part about this trail is it's all paved, as you can see from the pictures, compared to the Steve Bauer Trail, which is not. So we can do something there with seniors in particular to make this accessible to them and to use this for that purpose. We would probably have something like 20 fitness stations in different areas along the trail. I'm on the board of Wellspring Niagara. I'm also on their campaign cabinet, and I've also supported something called the Tour de Lac, which has raised $250,000 towards that facility. They do have a exercise program as well, and something outside in close proximity to their new building on Wellspring Way would be this trail, so they would also partner with us on this. I had met with members of Rotary Club on 3 occasions with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee a year ago. This never went to council. We have had some meetings with staff, so they are aware of it, but we wanted to make this new council and the mayor aware of this potential project that we would like to partner with the town on and to make that happen. And what we're asking is that would then be named the Rotary Fitness Trail.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. So before I turn this to council, and Vicki, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, you seem, when it comes to fitness and wellness, you seem to know the trails going into grants. So what do you think our chances are of getting a Trillium grant of that amount for that project?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's always a challenge. Grants are always a challenge. There could be a real possibility. Normally, there's always partners within any grant. I'm not quite sure. I have met with the Rotary Club with regard to this this year, and we haven't identified exactly how this would work in support-wise. I know the Rotary at the moment is not asking for funding, although that could change depending on, sorry, I haven't spoke to you about this, depending on the grant and what grants you're applying for. So in the big picture, you know, we would have to make sure that we aren't applying for other grants, right? So we support the Rotary wholeheartedly. I mean, they were always on board with the Steve Bauer Trail, and I know at that point we were getting infrastructure grants, you know, a third, and the Rotary helped us out as well. So they've always been a strong community partner, and I'm sure that we can work together and hopefully see what kind of grants would be available so that we can build it, and especially with Wellspring's support and being right there. Already I see that trail is being used by our walking club and seniors and children getting from one place to another. So it's a real wonderful connectivity within the community already. So this would only build it more.
We were successful in getting money from the Ontario Trillium Foundation for the Steve Bauer Trail in the past.
Yeah.
I have actually met with them some months ago and with the Niagara Community Foundation, and certainly this would be applicable to a grant. Again, I know with the Ontario Trillium Foundation, they're awarding about 1 out of 7 applications. So yeah, it's a bit of a chance, but we're not going ahead and doing anything until such time that we know that we would have that. And again, we can scale this, and we can scale it over a number of
Yep.
years. So we don't have to put 20 fitness stations in this year. We can do this over a period of time. Our money will come over a period of time as well that could go towards this
Excellent.
project. There is a Pelham Community Fund as part of the Niagara Community Foundation. As I said, I've met with them as well, and I think there's, because of support from this community for that, there's a possibility of getting money from them, if not from the Trilling Foundation.
Excellent. So I guess all we can do is start down the road, and you work with town staff, your group,
Yeah.
and let's see where we end up then.
Super. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was the main reason for coming here tonight, was just to apprise the new council
Yeah.
and yourself of this project and what our vision is for the future in regards to this part of the East End development.
Excellent. Thank you, and I'll just ask any member of council if they want to question you on this project. And if things not.
If you don't ask for money, you don't get any questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this is the emails that we received and what was presented tonight. It's both sides.
Okay, wait, okay. So, motion from Councillor Trophy. The Committee of the Whole receive and refer to staff the hour budget at pelham.ca and verbal presentations made by the public to be included in the 2019 budget request for consideration by council. Eliminate sidewalk snow clearing. Oh, sorry, can't do that. Anyway, review staffing levels, compensation, 0% increase in taxes for 2019. Review operating costs of community center and maintain loss maximum at $150,000. Request for gypsy moth spraying on Belfer Street between Steele Avenue and Alder Crescent. I can just say
And then
this.
the verbal presentations that were made
Yeah.
tonight.
And the verbal presentations that were made tonight, as in the splash pad, playground at the MCC, standardized street lighting, traffic flow Highway 20, road repairs, storm sewer replacement, MCC operations, and Mr. Jeffs was funds to deal with bylaw enforcement for cannabis. The Rotary Club outlining initiative for exercise equipment along trails. Fenwick Lions, electronic sign repairs at Centennial Park. And Sharon Cook, sidewalk snow clearing and maintenance. Everyone in favor of receiving this for information and to refer to staff the hour budget at pelham.ca.
I just wanted, through you, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to add a couple of things that came through to me personally through an email, if this is the time to add it, or?
Okay, is Madam Clerk?
There is a section for committee input on budget.
Okay, so you can do that?
So at number 6, after we're finished this.
Oh, okay, not quite yet, after we're
Thank
done
you.
this. So we'll just paddle on this motion. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And then we go to number 6, which is committee input on 2019 budget. And Councillor Trophy, you're up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, a few things were brought up, is a maintenance plan for the municipal drains in the town. If we can look at putting in a maintenance plan where they're maintained, a section of them per year, not the whole thing, but
Yes.
that. And then there's also some maintenance of some culverts and roads along River Road by the airport.
Okay. Excellent. Any comment on that?
We'd appreciate if you could forward that to, maybe just forward it to the Director of Public Works, and then he can include that in his budget summaries, and then that can be included in our overall discussions.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hahn.
I also had, excuse me, I also had a few things come my way, and that is the intersection of Homestead and Pelham with regards to increase either lighting and or signage to make it more visible in that area, so putting some money aside for that. And also to some speed issue between Haste and and Pelham on Welland Avenue. So either whether it's using the speed sign that we'll find somewhere, that one, yeah, or bumps or what have you, something along those lines. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So I will bring one issue. We talked about this before on council, and it goes back to the Rotary Club and not just their path, but all paths. And Councilor Hahn and I were talking about it. I believe, and Mr. CEO, you can fill me in on this. The town used to provide plastic doggy bags along the trails, because there was an article or a letter written in the Voice, and Councilor Hahn has told me that she's tried to walk a trail, and I find it inconceivable in this day and age when people have dogs that they don't get the message to please clean up your dog, that nobody else wants to see this mess, but there it is. The trails are getting littered with dog poop. So we used to supply the bags and then we stopped.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The bags were being replenished and then disappearing within an hour. So what we were doing is we were forever filling up doggy bags, and they were not being used for dogs. Somebody was coming along and using them for garbage bags, personal use, so it was just a never-ending battle. So it's one of those situations where the municipality had a good intention to provide that encouragement. However, it was not being utilized. Responsible dog owners are responsible dog owners, and they're the ones that do look after their pets. But it's a never-ending battle for those irresponsible dog owners. And unfortunately, putting doggy bags out didn't have an impact, and it was simply costing us money that we just we couldn't keep. We'd have to have a guy out all day long filling up doggy bags in order to provide the service in an adequate way. So we made the decision to not supply that, and then hopefully the responsible dog owners would pick up after their pets when they're out in public.
Yeah. Well, disheartening to say the least that we get all these paths and then people take their pets out and then can't pick up after them. I guess that's the reality of life. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Just adjourn.
So, yeah, let me put my goggles on here, glasses. A motion from Councillor Wink that this special meeting of committee be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for January 21st, 2019, following council. All those in favor? Okay, and meeting is adjourned.
It was like literally we go out in Peace Park. They go